They don't seek truth. It's not that anybody has a perfect knowledge of truth and they have a monopoly over it, but that's what the goal ought to be. People ought to be willing to do it, and if you've shown that we think A, B, C, and somebody says to you, say, Ron, C isn't quite right, we should be listening to that, but we should always have one precise goal, and that is knowing the truth. And as Mencken said, the person who seeks truth is the most dangerous man there is to government.
Bad things start to happen. That's the difference between someone who's exposing it for good reasons, and that's the difference between someone who is a sociopath. So why do I think that these guys are sociopaths? Sociopath falls under the category of a psychopath, who sometimes is considered synonymous with sociopathy. Traditionally defined as a personality disorder characterized by persistent antisocial behavior. Wait a minute. Do these people have persistent antisocial behavior? Well, I would say so. You can't talk to them about the issue without them blocking you and shutting you down and acting like you're attacking them. You can't bring up any facts and say, now, this fact doesn't show that what you're saying it does. Why are you telling people that Voodoo Donuts is a trafficking operation when you have absolutely zero proof? Slam, block. Slam, you're a co-op Intel Pro. Anytime you have a question for them for some type of thing they've done where they deserve the question, they deserve the critique, what do they say? That you're a shill. Every single time, guys. It's nonstop. So, is that antisocial behavior? Yes. Never accepting any criticism and always labeling anyone that criticizes you. Now, a lot of these people, too, you don't see them really interacting with their audience. Do you ever? Antisocial to the max. Impaired empathy and remorse. Well, I think that having impaired empathy is completely shown by the willingness to drop PayPal links while not worrying about the kid that is the one that really should be getting the benefit from you doing what you're doing. There's a disconnect. They feel they deserve money. They deserve to be worshipped. They deserve to be a public figure. They deserve to have the attention of all these people looking at them as a hero because they are the ones that are willing to take a kid's pain and suffering and turn it into a monetizable platform. Empathy is the capacity to understand. Listen to this, because you will completely agree with me, I think. The capacity to understand or even feel what another person is experiencing from within their frame of reference. So, what empathy means is that if you are sitting there screaming in someone's face, if you're sitting there making money off of a kid who has went through the most horrible thing ever, if you're sitting there pointing fingers at Voodoo Donuts owner and not putting yourself in Voodoo Donuts owner's shoes, I do think that all of the /Pizzagate /Pedogate reporter YouTubers out there, like Liz Crokin, Beans, Moneybee, all these guys, I think that they lack empathy. The capacity to understand or feel what another is experiencing from within their frame of reference. The capacity to place oneself in another's position. There are many definitions for empathy that encompass a broad range of emotional states. Type of empathy include cognitive empathy, emotional empathy, and somatic empathy. Research investigating the social response to natural disasters looked at the characteristics associated with individuals who help victims. Follow me for a second, please. Researchers found that cognitive empathy rather than emotional empathy predicted helping behavior toward victims. Others have posited that taking on the perspectives of others, cognitive empathy, allows these individuals to better empathize with victims without as much discomfort, whereas sharing the emotions of the victims, emotional empathy, can cause emotional distress, helplessness, victim blaming, ultimately can lead to avoidance rather than helping. Would you say that people that report on kids in these situations, not people that are reporting facts, People that are trying to give you a new investigation every freaking week. People that are pointing more fingers at people because of what they deem is right and wrong and what they deem is the truth, without providing enough evidence to really say one way or another. Or they are telling you that their evidence is enough to believe it without even showing it, like Sather does, like Titus does. One of my biggest problems with the zombie Titus is that he constantly is telling you, hey, these John Podesta police sketches means that Podesta and Tony are bad guys. When I know Podesta and Tony are bad guys, okay? Or Podesta and Tony and what's his name? I know they're bad guys, okay? But I'm saying these police sketches are easily debunkable by the police themselves. Does Mr. Titus update his documentary? Does he go online and say, hey, you know what? This police sketch thing has been debunked. We don't want to use that as evidence. It'll make our whole argument look bad. It'll make people not take our argument seriously once they investigate the slightest bit of these police sketches. Well, what ends up Titus doing? No, he goes straight to his channel and tells people it doesn't matter what the police say. My perspective is right. I believe the police sketches show what I'm saying it shows. And if you don't agree with it, you're trying to defeat Pizzagate. No, if those police sketches actually did fit the bill for what he's saying, I would gladly report it on my own channel. But they don't. Even an 8-year-old could debunk that one thing. My point that I'm making is that not only are the people that are behind Q now, as Nima, especially Dustin Nima, is one of the most psychopathic people I've experienced the most psychopathic person I've experienced on YouTube. I can prove this. It's provable. It's real. He wants to convince you he's a genius, but has put no credentials forth to prove it. And he's very violent. With his past, his criminal past shows extreme violence. Even up to now, still showing extreme violence. Because it's a personality disorder, it's never going to be fixed with him. He would need, a lot of treatment to get there. I tell you, all of them behind Q cannot put themselves in the shoes of the people giving them money. You see what I'm saying? That's why if you dangle a baby in front of your show, but can't admit to yourself that then talking about pedogate and you would, if you really cared, if you really believed in pedogate, you would think there are so many pedophiles out there. I'm not going to show my infant on the screen every day. Maybe a couple times, fine. But, little tiny things that make you ask yourself, do they really put themselves in other people's shoes? Or do they really even believe what they're saying? Little things like that. Little things like, when you're standing inside of the gun store saying, buy me a gun, buy me a gun. Who wants to donate and buy me a gun? Who wants to buy me a gun? I'm all cracked out looking. You want to buy me a gun? All these little things. You don't put yourself in other people's shoes. Do you deserve them to buy you a gun? Isn't this a little weird? Like, why are you guilt tripping? So where are we at here? Characterized by persistent antisocial behavior, check. Impaired empathy, double check. And remorse, impaired remorse, right? Egotistical traits, I think that's a quadruply double chocolate covered pretzel check right there. Bold, definitely bold, because they're willing to just go right online and not have evidence to back up what they say, but still pretend like they do. That's exceptionally bold. Disinhibited. What do they define that as? A lack of restraint manifested in disregard for social conventions, impulsivity, and poor risk assessment. Disinhibition affects motor, instinctual, emotional, cognitive, and perceptual aspects with signs and symptoms similar to the diagnostic criteria. I'm not even going to try to click that and understand it right now. Different conceptions of psychopathy have been used throughout history that are only partly overlapping and may sometimes be contradictory. I'm going to leave the rest up to you. I challenge you to take a YouTuber, head over to psychopathy, and see if they fit the bill. Because everyone that I've been criticizing here in the last couple weeks, save a couple, in my opinion, fit the bill perfectly for psychopaths. And I think that's why they can openly lie, never ever take criticism. I think that's why they look down on people like me. even if I criticize them for their reasons, the logical reasons they deserve criticism, they will not make an attempt to try to communicate, explain it. Like when I debunk Jordan Sather every week, at least with 2 or 3 things he tries to tell you are facts, and I prove to you scientifically that they are not facts, he won't even care enough about his audience. I would feel horrible. Like the praying medic thing. I almost thought that I was telling you the wrong thing with Bride Ministries. Now, there's some evidence to say that we were right about it, and I'm still working this. I've got one person. As soon as they email me back this weekend, I will have the hardcore what it was that makes it look like he was involved with Bride Ministries, okay? I think I messed up saying Dan Duvall, but I'm not saying he wasn't involved with Bride Ministries yet. But I felt horrible the minute someone said, hey, I don't think that's praying medic. That's all I needed. I was in there like double, triple, quadruple checking. I went and got several of my investigators to get on it and start trying to pull me some definitive piece of proof. And I made a deadline. I've made deadlines every time. If I don't hit it by that date, write it on the board, we're going to go in and tell people not to take that information in. I feel horrible if I give you something that's not real. Every time I've updated a story. I've even went back and into videos when I used to be able to lay annotations in and laid annotations over information that I found out was misrepresented. Back on the old channel, because since I've come to Unirock 2 to do a lot of content, we don't have annotations anymore. YouTube took them out. Anyway, I attest to you that the reason that most of the Q guys who had violent criminal backgrounds, like 20 felonies, the $1 million heroin charge, cyber stalking, all those things that Nemos had, I attest to you, well, his name's, I'll call him Dustin because his name isn't Nemos, that's not his last name, but I attest to you it's because he pushed, these are the traits in which make him constantly act the way he does, incapable of being able to think outside the box. To the people that flock to YouTube and are willing to lie, cheat, steal, make money off of kids suffering, they all exhibit these traits. And it would make sense. Is there a personality disorder that is more likely to flock to YouTube and lie and try to manipulate their way to the top of the subscriber count? Of course there is. It's just logical to say it. They are one of them, for sure.